find this to be one of the most fascinating articles that I have read all year, especially because it talks about the pandemic. The pandemic, in my opinion, was a mirror into society. It showed how people really are. And here we have a journalist from the New York Times, not necessarily regretting his decision during the pandemic, which was to ostracize a family member, but realizing that it actually hurts him more than the family member. And so his decision to regain contact, to regain connection, is not one of remorse. It is simply one of self-interest. So basically what happened is that his family member refused to take the vaccine. He doesn't say that the family member was encouraging others not to take the vaccine, but his simple decision not to vaccinate himself upset the journalist, and he took that personally. And so he behaved like a little bitch, basically being passive-aggressive, being frosty, as he says. And he explains that he wasn't doing this because he hated his brother. He had no actual feeling about him. He viewed it as a moral obligation, almost as a higher calling to improve society. And so he was behaving like this in order to root out sin, if you will. Yet, after the pandemic was gone, he realizes that he actually missed that connection, and then he ended up talking with his relative and connected over surfing, so now they're cool. Now, probably that the relative doesn't know what went on to the person's brain, but it's an interesting insight for those of us who are not part of the woke ideology to actually understand how these people think, right? Because at no point does he talk about a discussion, a conversation, or does he care about what his brother wanted. It's the simple fact that the brother didn't want to get vaccinated that was enough to foster the shunning. And it's interesting because they call the MAGA a cult, right? Now, why did this happen, right? Like, what actually went into the brain of the journalist? Well, the first thing that went is that the journalists, much like all woke people, believe in moral absolutism. What does it mean? It means that they know what morality is. They are capable of having a set of rules that dictate right from wrong. And there is no disagreeing with them. There is no like, you do you, I do me. No. Unless every single person on planet Earth, every single member of humanity, every single child that was born and will be born, unless every single soul thinks and does exactly what the woke tell them, there can't be harmony. And so their vision of good is that everyone has to get vaccinated. And if you don't get vaccinated, it's not a matter of choice or liberty. You're actively harming society. You're an evil person. And when you think like that, you start to understand, okay, well, they separate the world into two teams. Like you have the Obama Ivy League, the enlightened team that they're part of. And then you have like the Joe Rogan stem cells team that are the barbarians, the savages, the uneducated. And basically the way the journalists react is like finding out that a savage is in his family. Right? And the savage is going to poison everyone else, so he has to ostracize. He has to lead by example. For him, shunning wasn't a matter of choice, it was a moral principle. He basically had moral contempt. He felt a moral superiority bias. He elevated what is basically a lifestyle and health choice into a moral absolute. It's not that, the journalist is suffering from some pathology. It just says that he has rigid moral reasoning, where disagreement is not just an error, but evidence of bad character. And obviously, when you think like that, especially in his situation, often leads to the individual being lonely. Because when your morality is so rigid that no one else around you manages to fit, and you start ostracizing many people, you actually do end up lonely, especially when you start ostracizing your own flesh and blood. No ideology, in my opinion, is worthy of ostracizing your own flesh and blood over issues like this. Like not even trying to find compromise, not even trying to find the middle ground. And it's also like an extremely simplistic worldview, isn't it? It's like my team is enlightened. My team told me that this is how we play. And anyone that doesn't play like my team, there's no explanation for it. Just ostracization. And I think it's like one of the main issues that his own sense of self-worth seems to be tied to being part of the enlightened. Like that's what validates this person. It's not, the roots, the family that he created, the people he surrounds himself with, the accomplishments. And then again, like what accomplishments? It's a journalist from the New York Times. I can't understand that. But none of that is as important to his identity as being part of the enlightened class. And so the very existence of his brother, the very fact that his brother is making different choices, is a threat to his self-image, which reflects, in my opinion, an ego fragility. And once you understand this, you understand how woke people think, right? Like their absolute morality, their worldview is the only acceptable worldview in their clique. And anyone that has a different worldview, like their very existence is an attack to their self-identity. And there's many reasons for it. I think like subconsciously is that if you were to have a different group of people that have a different way of life and it's actually working, like if someone can find happiness and fulfillment without being enlightened, that is a huge attack to his very personal self. Because it would imply the fact that his moral absolutism isn't moral absolute. Like there are other moralities that can actually create happy people. One of the examples of this, and I think like he would be absolutely livid if I were to show him, was a documentary during the pandemic talking about the Amish. So during the lockdowns, you had a gentleman that had a YouTube channel, went to the Amish community to interview them and see how they're coping. And obviously the Amish don't have television, they don't go on the internet, and so like they're a more isolationist community. And they were actually very happy. Like I watched the faces of people from other videos that he made previously, and everyone was anxious, they were feeling doom and gloom because like the television was constantly bombarding you with COVID cases, COVID deaths, COVID fatalities, COVID. And the Amish had none of that. And the Amish were actually happy, and they asked, it's like, well, what about the COVID? Like, and they were like, oh, yeah, Grandpa Jebediah, he came sick with it, but, he was old, so. And they were, like, upset, talking about their death. I mean, they were saying that they had 2 or 3 people that died in their community, but, like, nothing major, right? It wasn't the Black Death. And they were chill, like, they were smiling, they were relaxed, right? So, like, this is a different morality. They're not part of the Obama Ivy League of enlightenment, but they're able to live on with their lives. And imagine how this journalist would have felt, right? Knowing that these people exist. Like, from his perspective, they were a threat to society. The pandemic, in my opinion, is the very definition of the horror of what happens when you have moral absolutism, in the sense that no human being on planet Earth is allowed to even think differently. It creates strife. It's impossible, right? Like, what happens when you have one of those in your family? Well, the answer is ostracization, right? So what happens when you ostracize so many that you end up being lonely? Well, it's the case of this journalist. He's not going to apologize. He's not going to admit fault. He still believes what he believes. He still believes that it was right to do what he did, but he doesn't want to feel lonely, so he's going to pretend as if nothing happens. In my opinion, that's despicable, but it is what it is. Let me know what you guys think, and as usual, I will see you in my live stream. Take care.